Hello, this is David Seibotham, and welcome to Stupid Things People Do and what we can learn from them. Today we're going to talk about the housing crisis, poverty, and what a direct consent for or can mean for your organization. All right, so technically yes, what I was trying to say is pretty bad. So to start with, trigger warning. This stupid thing is about some pretty egregious sexual harassment, and maybe some of the most egregious stuff we talked about on the show. I'll explain as gently as I can. You see, there's this lady. Let's call her Tori Rice LeBowl. And she and her 5 children were benefiting from Section 8 housing back in 2018. For the past 21 years, there's been a bit of an affordable housing crisis, in much of the USA at least, and it doesn't show any signs of improving. And Tori, being poor, had to make do with what was available. Turns out, what was available was a man who we're just going to name Pepe Le Pew. See, Pepe apparently took the eponymous skunk not as a crude joke, but as a playbook on how to treat women who were moving into properties he managed. Tori LeBowl was one such woman, and when Junior presented her with the final leasing agreement, that included a direct consent for, well, to paraphrase, various forms of sexual misconduct. So actually, my comparison to Pepe Le Pew might have been a bit of an understatement. There's basically no way to describe the contents of that form in a way that remains PG-13, much less within the appropriateness confines of a 1940s cartoon. So in addition to the Playboy Mansion approach to property management, said form also included a clause where Tori had to promise that she did not currently have a boyfriend, girlfriend, or parent who was larger, meaner, and more physically aggressive or owns firearms or is more possessive than Pepe. And in addition to that clause, she also had to promise she was not under the influence of a variety of substances ranging from incapacitating intoxicants, aphrodisiacs, psychoactive substances, including but not limited to alcohol, drugs, oysters, weirdly, bromelanoids, I can't pronounce that word. It's bromelanotide. There you go. Truffles, sea cucumbers, strawberries, lobsters, dark chocolate, cocaine, LSD, cannabis, or any other mind-altering substances named by Pepe. It's a really weird list. It raises the question, what are we going to unpack first? Well, first of all, it is one thing to be that insecure and insane, but it is quite another to put that insecure insanity into writing. Like, wow. And now there's been a lawsuit, so that idiocy is preserved in public record forever. Second of all, now there's been a lawsuit, that contract, it's quid pro quo harassment. It's like literally the textbook definition of offering something in exchange for submission to sexual harassment. Which, I mean, yeah, unsolicited requests for a sexual misconduct variety pack would by definition be sexual harassment. And that's not to mention the weird subclauses about not having a scary boyfriend. But the problem with the law is it's the law, and there is always stuff to litigate. It's like never simple. And you and I know that was wrong. And honestly, I think Pepe Le Rake, and that is a much better name for him, I think he knew as well. I mean, you don't include promise me your daddy won't beat me up clauses if you think what you're doing is well above water. So the legal question here isn't whether the behavior was wrong. It's what laws were violated, and equally importantly, who is liable. See, Pepe Le Rake was just the property manager, not the property owner. So legal technical language time. Le Rake was empowered as the owner's agent to act on the owner's behalf. Because of this, Le Rake's actions can make the owner liable for Le Rake's misconduct. So the owner, let's call him Larry, is now also involved in the lawsuit. So under the Federal Fair Housing Act, it is illegal, technical language time, to make, print, or publish any notice, statement, or advertisement with respect to the sale or rental of a dwelling that indicates any preference, limitation, or discrimination based on sex. And both Le Rake and Larry could be in hot water over that one, because that is exactly what Le Rake did. Or, I mean, maybe it's just Le Rake in hot water. As of writing this, the lawsuit is ongoing, and one of the legal questions is what if poor Larry had no idea what Le Rake was up to? Well, under Nevada's fair housing law, the employer is not liable for their employee's intentional misconduct if the employee's conduct was 1. Truly an independent venture, 2. Not committed in the course of the very task assigned to the employee, and 3. Not reasonably foreseeable. I mean, direct consent forms for blankety blank blank can hardly be called reasonable or foreseeable, so Larry may have a solid defense. By comparison, Le Rake's defense ranges from she propositioned me first, to she said she'd do anything, to I was just scared of being sued in case someone said I did something that wasn't nice. And I mean, yeah, you can kind of tell the overcooked omelet that is this guy's brain that a direct consent for sexual abuse form was something he thought was a good solution to people might say I was being mean. That's like burning down your garage because you're afraid there's a gas leak. Just like, I don't know, don't sexually harass or abuse your tenants. It's something that 90% of property managers succeed at every day. Anyway, LeRake has also tried to hide behind a liability release form. It's a standard part of rental documents that basically says you won't hold the organization or individual liable for yada, 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 yada. Basically, he maintained LeBeau signed a document waiving liability, so she can't sue. And that's not quite right. You see, liability forms don't waive all liability forever. They only waive it in very specific ways. And they definitely don't waive it for illegal or intentional actions. So, for example, say I sign one when I'm using the gym. That will protect me if, at the gym, I drop a weight on my foot. But if the gym manager follows me home to New York and drops a 10-pound barbell on my head from the top of the Empire State Building, that kind of intentional malfeasance doesn't so much have to do with me using the gym, so much has to do with the manager as a complete psychopath. And we can safely file LeRake's unique take on leasing agreements underneath psychopathic and intentional behavior. So, other than the law is complicated, what are our takeaways? Well, first of all, be very wary about hiring managers. I'm not saying don't do it, but you need to be really careful to screen them extremely well. And be sure to stay involved in what they're doing. If a manager commits misconduct on your behalf or on your organization's behalf, I did not know may not be a defense. Sometimes it will be, but not always. So the best solution is to stay very involved if you've delegated a venture. The second is to make sure your contracts both comply with the law and make sense to reasonable people. Maybe get some actual lawyers involved in reviewing your template contracts. As you can see here, lawyers are kind of picky about language. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.